First tonight, the I-Team exposes a major breakdown at the Houston Police Department.
Jeremy Rogalski uncovers how a crack in the system has handcuffed thousands of crimes from being solved. Jeremy?
Yeah, Lisa and Greg, we're talking about fingerprints and what Houston police often fail to do after lifting them at a crime scene.
It's often the only lead to solving a crime, a crook's signature left at the scene that cops can run through a massive fingerprint database and match to the suspected thieves.
You can see the prints, they were clear as day.
It's why Andrew Rohrer had high hopes after bad guys broke into his home. They took $5,000 in electronics, but on a backyard window, left 2 palm prints behind.
Good evidence.
You would think so, and that's what the cop said.
But that HPD cop never followed through with that evidence, and more than a year and a half later, never requested it to be analyzed at Houston's crime lab.
What do you think about the fact that your prints have been sitting on a shelf all this time?
I'm absolutely shocked. It's the type of thing that makes you lose faith in the police department.
There was some prints here.
And he's far from alone. At Katina Jones's home, you can still see the burglar's prints that HPD lifted, but never asked the lab to run.
Not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all.
Making the chances for an arrest slim to none.
They didn't seem like it was a big deal to them. It's like, okay, another break-in.
The problem is pervasive. The I-Team analyzed more than 4,400 crimes with recovered fingerprint evidence, and in more than half of those, HPD failed to request lab analysis. And it's not just burglary cases, but aggravated robberies, assaults, even murder.
Did you know about this problem before we started asking questions?
No, I did not.
HPD Interim Chief Martha Montalvo.
It should have been caught, but it wasn't.
What do you tell that crime victim when they hear this?
I can only apologize. This shouldn't have happened. There was a crack in the process. We are working to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Here you're going to select latent print processing.
Chief Montalvo is now requiring officers to watch this training video again. And she says she's met with patrol and detective captains to drive the point home.
She said that when we mess up, we're going to fess up and we're going to clean up.
It's something Police Union President Ray Hunt supports, but he says there's a better way than having to manually enter requests into the crime lab's computer system.
You can do a program that automatically notifies the Houston Forensic Science Center, here's a print, it needs to be tested.
Silver passed down through generations.
Whatever the fix, it can't come too soon for victims like James Quillen. Thieves turned his home upside down. And as long as police sit on evidence,
They'll get away with it and commit other crimes. You know, if you get away with it, you're going to continue doing it.
But turns out the police department isn't the only one with a problem. What happens when HPD does notify the city's crime lab? Well, that answer's coming tomorrow night at 10, but I'll give you a hint. Hurry up and wait.
Oh, great. Sounds like the crooks are getting a free pass almost.
And it's so frustrating for the victims. They've been violated and they're left being, you know, just with nowhere to go.
Looking for results and nowhere to turn.
Absolutely.
All right, Jeremy, thanks. Sitting on evidence. Tonight, the I-Team continues its investigation into unsolved crimes because nothing was ever done with fingerprints taken at the scene.
Jeremy Rogalski uncovers another snag that's blocking crime victims from getting the justice they deserve.
it's a snapshot etched in Elizabeth Lane's mind.
They came through the back patio.
Intruders
right
barging
side of the
into her
patio
family's
door.
home and stealing the irreplaceable.
Wedding bands, wedding rings, engagement rings. I've been violated.
And violated a second time by Houston police sitting on the fingerprint evidence for more than a year and a half. It's one of nearly 2,500 crimes over the past 20 months in which HPD failed to send prints to Houston's crime lab for analysis and a possible suspect ID.
The prints from your crime have been sitting on a shelf ever since.
So frustrating. I mean, why bother to come out and take the prints if you're not going to finish the process? That's their job. That is their job.
But HPD's not the only one not doing its job, the I-Team found. Here at the city's independent crime lab, we discovered some major delays analyzing prints that are turned in. When are you turning these requests around?
Longer than we'd like it to be.
Just how long? 85 days on average to analyze fingerprints in property crimes. But that drops to 17 days on average for crimes like robbery and assault. Dr. Peter Stout is the crime lab's chief operating officer.
Why is it quicker for crimes against persons and slower for property crime.
No, as we're prioritizing crimes against person over property crimes.
Is that fair to the burglary victim?
No, really it's not. Really it's not fair to any of the victims.
And really not fair to victims in more than 600 burglary cases. That's the number of fingerprint requests backlogged at the crime lab for 6 months or more.
We're not happy with where this is at. This is not an acceptable circumstance. There's a lot of layers that need to get fixed in this.
As for Elizabeth Lane, HPD finally sent the crime lab a request to analyze prints from her crime scene, but
In my case, I think time is probably about out.
the statute of limitations runs out in just a few months.
Fingerprints were probably our best option, if not our only option, for maybe a chance to find out who did this.
So what's behind the backlog? Well, the Houston Crime Lab no longer even uses HPD's fingerprint database, calling it outdated and out of compliance with federal standards. Instead, it has to run prints through the FBI or state systems, but those are slow, taking up to 24 hours to produce results, and that is for each case. Greg and Lisa, do the math.
Yeah, when you have hundreds of cases waiting in line, no wonder it's taking forever. So are there plans to change that?
There are. By summer's end, the crime lab hopes to be hooked up to a regional database that's much, much faster. Instead of 24 hours, we're talking 5 to 10 minutes to run those through.
That would really help solve the backlog.
Indeed.
All right, Jeremy, thanks.